Today, we're going to talk a little bit about this issue on, I guess, Panasonic and also Grab, right? There has been, newspaper reports with regards to both of these companies looking towards letting go of or laying off some of their staff members, right? And the next thing is, what can we do, right? So this small little episode is going to talk a little bit about that, right? So basically, if we were to look in economic terms, lah, right, what a business does, right, or how the main, the main objective of a business, again, this is from economics, right, is to figure out a way to make a profit, right, by offering certain services, right. So right now, if we were to look at the global environment, right, the economy is not quite picking up, right? And the economy seems to be, not really picking up. The economy seems to, if anything, does not look the best at this point in time, right? So, what's happening right now is that some companies, right, they are looking towards letting go of their staff members. Recall that there were some other e-commerce companies that actually earlier during this year, they started laying off some of their people, right? So, with that being said, basically, right, if companies are letting go of people, right, what can we do, basically, right? So, this actually is quite a scary time at this point in time, right? And on top of that, if companies, on top of that, we also have to remember that there's also the inflation, right? After the pandemic, right, what happened, right? The economy started opening. And once the economy started opening, what happened was that people started to travel a little bit, right? And when people started traveling a little bit, what happened was harga minyak or harga minyak naik. Lepas tu, aside from that, after the increase in prices of crude the RON 95 and RON 97, what eventually happened is that, always recall, right, that the feedstock or the main cost driver for companies, right, especially transport companies, are actually fuel prices. Fuel prices. That's a word for it, right? So if transport companies start to have an increase in their costs via an increase in the petrol prices, right? What will happen is that there is a pass down impact, lah, right, or pass down effect. So when that happens, right, not only fuel prices is going up, but also food prices, as I mentioned, right. So assuming if there is a fisherman, say somewhere in Terengganu, right, he caught a fish, right. And how does a fish from Terengganu gets to our table over in Selangor? I live in Selangor, right? So how do I get my fish, right? So it needs to go through transportation, lah, from say somewhere in Terengganu to bring the fish over to Selangor. On top of that, our daily meals also maybe consist of rice, right? So maybe the rice will come maybe from Kedah. So when the rice is from Kedah, it will have to be transported onto our tables, right? So when there's an increase in fuel prices, right, what will tend to happen is that when fuel prices goes up, not only fuel prices goes up, but harga makanan, right, will also go up. So recall, right, that there was harga chili naik, harga timun naik. What else? A lot of things naik lah. So basically, and how this will impact us lah, right, is that, say if your mom is going to cook, right, every once in a while, right, and what will happen is that, in order for us to get the food, right, we have to go to groceries, right, every time. Maybe 200 ringgit lah at one point in time was enough for us to actually buy a whole month's of groceries, right. Right now, 200 ringgit can barely get us anything, right? So I guess So right now, with the value of the the money getting smaller, as I mentioned. The second thing is with inflation, right? As I mentioned, when crude oil prices goes up, then all this transport, to transport the rice to our table, to transport the fish from Terengganu to our table, right? Assuming if we all live in Selangor lah, right? There is also a knock off effect lah, basically, right? That's the second thing. And then the third thing is that do recall that we are a net importer for a lot of food over here in Malaysia. So if we are net importers of food, right, what will happen is that if the ringgit gets weaker, what will happen is that to import food into the country will be more expensive. And therefore, right now, it is a truly scary time. So I started off this particular, I guess, podcast talking a little bit about Panasonic and also Grab letting go of their people, right? And then on top of that, on the other hand, what's happening right now is that there is maybe companies letting go of people, right? And on top of that, there's always the structure of the economy, right? It has been happening for many, many years, especially for fresh grads. When fresh grads want to find jobs, it is almost impossible to find jobs. Let's be very honest, right? And what's happening right now is that the thing is that there are not many hiring companies, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of fresh grads have opted to go into the gig economy. And the proof of this was quite recently, if you look at some data, I think about 70 or 70-ish% of SPM leavers are not interested towards furthering education. If we think about it, right, why do we want to go for higher education? It's basically to, I guess, for us to be more knowledgeable and to be a skilled worker within the workforce, right? So that's one of the reasons why a lot of people, maybe after the SPM, they want to study maybe architecture, accounting, engineering, so on and so forth, right? And the end goal, let's not kid ourselves, is to eventually get a job, right? But right now, as a lot, and this has been, as I mentioned, has been happening for quite some time, as a lot of grads, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, right, they graduated and they still cannot find a job. That will disincentivize a lot of new SPM takers to not continue education, right? Actually, it's kind of like a scary situation now, right? So right now, what's happening is that companies letting go, not many jobs out there, right? And there's also an increase in the cost of things basically, right? As I mentioned, kalau harga minyak naik or kalau crude oil naik, this will impact the petrol prices. And if petrol prices naik, as I mentioned, if I stay somewhere in Selangor, right? Selangor is somewhere around in Malaysia, right? So Terengganu is off the coast, right? If a fisherman catch a fish over there, how does the food come to my table? He needs to go through transportation. And Kedah is the rice bowl of Malaysia, basically, right? And it's about 4 hours away to I guess where I stay. So a lot of this would have transport costs, right? So if there is an increase in costs, meaning to say that there is a slight inflation, basically, right? So what can one do, right? I think the most common advice, you will see a lot of financial channels talking about this, is that have a budget, right? And sometimes when I listen to that, I just scratch my head. It's like, how do we budget when there is not many job opportunities out there, right? And on top of that, there is also an increase in cost of living, right? Some people are barely making it, basically, right? So I guess this is my take on the whole thing, basically, right? Is number one, I think this is very, very important, is to try to figure out how to increase income, basically, right? And right now with the internet, right, it's very, very easy for us to actually connect with other people around the world, right? And I've seen the freelancing economy, right? Where people, if you are good in drawing, right, you can actually go to freelancing websites, right? So I can tell you a couple. On your search engine, you type freelance, Freelance, right? And over there, since this is the internet and is a global village, you can actually try to offer your skills and your talents to companies as far as America, as far as maybe somewhere in Europe, right? And if you're really good in, say, drawing, right, you can be a graphic artist, right? And I've seen some people do this. They draw logos and tries to sell it, right? And the good thing about these freelancing websites is that you get paid in US dollars, lah, especially the American freelancing websites. And right now, as the ringgit is getting, I guess, relatively weaker, I think one of the beneficiaries would be guys that's earning US dollar. And freelancing websites could be the way to go, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is that that's to invest your time towards making income, lah, basically. The second thing is that, like it or not, lah, once we already have our primary income, which is from the job, and then the secondary income maybe is from freelancing, lah. The next thing is, whatever way we look at it, lah, we still need to budget, lah, right? And honestly, why I think budgeting is super important, right, is that I've seen some people, right, especially professionals, lah, they earn quite a fair bit actually, right? But say, assuming they earn 5K, lah, right? Assuming they earn 5K. But when it comes to spending, right, they probably spend 7 or 8K, you know. So they overspend by quite a fair bit. And once someone is a professional, right, they can get bigger credit. So that's one of the reasons why some people, even though they have very high positions and they have high paying jobs, as soon as they maybe retire or lose their jobs, right, they cannot survive. 1-2 years, then they go bankrupt. So I always scratch my head and I always wonder to myself, how is this even possible, right? And the simple thing of it all is that if a person, for every 1 ringgit or $1 he earns, but if he spends about 110 or 120, right, that will put you in, I guess, that will force people to make loans, basically, right? So what I want to say over here is when you budget, right, make sure that your expenses is much less than your income or your take-home income, right? So if this happens, right, what will you do with your extra money, so to speak? The first thing you should do with your extra money is to pare down or to pay off your credit card loans. Super duper important. And why do I say so? Credit card loans, right, sometimes can be 12, 13, 14%, right? As many of us know, right? And honestly, right, to get an investment that pays about 15% per annum, right, consistently, very susah. So that's one of the reasons why, instead of, once you get extra money, instead of investing, perhaps look towards paying off your credit card. Whatever the 15% that you save, right? The 15% that you save, right, can be considered like an earning, basically, right? So once you already have some extra cash, as I mentioned, pay down credit card. Second is once you already paid all your credit card loans down, then start investing, I guess. And this is where we will make our money work for us, right? And when we make the money work for us, right, then eventually what will happen is that this is an enabler for people to retire in the future. Let me give you guys another example. Back in the day, right, our parents or maybe our grandparents, right, what do? Right? They don't work all their life, you know. What they do is maybe they buy a house for themselves and for their kids, lah. And then sometimes they will buy another land, lah. Maybe they buy another shop house, or maybe they buy another house, or maybe they have another land, right? And what tends to happen is that they will rent out these assets, right? And they will get some income, lah, right? I like to call it passive income, right? The whole thing of it all is that when you rent a thing, right, you don't do that much of work, you get rental money, right? For me, it's passive income. But again, you know, some people say, oh, but you know, you have to talk to tenant lah. You have to talk to tenant. You have to chase for rent. You know, how can it be passive income? But if you guys think about it, right, if the rental is maybe 3 or 4,000 lah, right, guys, just to chase rental and get 3,000, right? You only chase rental only for maybe 10 or 20 minutes a month, I guess, right? I consider that as passive income, quite honestly, right? So anyway, talking about our grandparents, right? That is what they used to do, and that is how they used to make their income, right? Income. So it comes to a stage where once the income is big enough, they can actually retire and not work, right? And that was the retirement plan for back in the day, lah, right? Having said that, in today's environment, also the same, right? We have to pick good assets, lah. And I'm sure you guys know of I'm sure lah, crypto millionaires lah, basically like 20-year-old, my guy, 15-year-olds, you know. I mean, you read stories lah, these guys, you know, crypto, you know, they invested, and then after that it flew to the moon, right? Having said that, right, after that, then there was a crypto crash lah, right? Basically what I'm trying to say lah, right, is when you invest in an asset, please make sure that they are stable assets lah, not assets that fluctuate a fair bit lah. The thing of it all is that the more you have saved up, is the more you're basically buying your financial freedom lah, basically, right? So that's the second thing lah. And the third thing lah is this lah, you know, please be consistent. Right, please be consistent. At this point in time, you know, with the economic situation just going up, down, upside down, 2022, a lot of people thought that 2022 would be maybe one of the, I guess, where the economy was not so stable at 2022. Everyone thought 2023 is going to be a new year. It's going to be a new dawn. It's going to be a new hope. Having said that, if we look at 2023 right now, when we look at, you know, jobs or people being just let go, it seems to me, and okay, people being let go at the same time, there's also an inflation. Doesn't look like it's any better, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is that we can't control what goes around us, but we can always control ourselves, right? So the one thing that we can control, how much money we make. Second thing we can control, how much money we spend. And third thing we can control, how much money we invest, right? And when you have enough money invested or enough money working for you, this is where we all can eventually retire, right? So I'm going to read the comment sections. I don't know whether... It's my very first time actually doing this thing. Right. So this is my very first time in many months. So I'm really glad that actually we had one or two people coming in, right? Yeah, I just gotta not do live anymore, right? I'm on another platform. Initial is TT, right? Over there, yeah, you know, I mean, it's a different community lah. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? Get back to my roots over here in YouTube, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing my live, right? So I don't see any questions, but I do see a couple of people over here. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank you so very much for coming into the live session. I hope that you found this very useful live session. And yeah, with that, I'm looking towards coming and doing more live sessions. At this point in time, this is my first one, and I'm gonna try to make it as frequent as before, and I want to rebuild the community back over in this channel. With that, guys, take care, good evening, and I wish you guys, goodbye, and hope to see you guys in the next episode.